And is there any additions to the agenda? No. Motion to approve the agenda. Donna? Move to approve the agenda. All in favor? Carried. And we'll have approval of the November 21st, 2017 MPC minutes. Amber's moved. Is there any questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. And then we'll do development permits, file number DP 2017-156. Good mornings. Whenever you're ready, Suzanne.
So I'll just give you a summary of my RFD and report. So this application is approximately 3 kilometers east of Cheadle, and it is for an existing dwelling to be used as a garden suite. It's going to require 3 variances. 3 variances are requested. The recommendation is that staff have recommended that MPC choose option 2 to refuse the application because the manufactured dwelling was placed on the property current to the current land use bylaw and met the requirements of the day, but it does not meet the A277 standard as stated in our new bylaw. So the report, as I mentioned, this temporary dwelling was put on the property in 1996, and it had received subsequent approvals. It was expired in February of this year. The property was purchased by new owners, and they want to use that existing temp dwelling as a garden suite now. So a garden suite is supposed to have a maximum square footage of 1,200 square feet, and this existing dwelling is 1,527 square feet. It has, it's supposed to be 40 feet from the primary residence at the most, but it is 170 feet. And it is supposed to meet the A277 CSA standard, and it does not meet this requirement. So the intention of the garden suite needing to be a maximum of 1,200 square feet was that it should be a smaller version, so you didn't have 2 great big large dwellings on one piece of property. That was our intent when we put it in the bylaw. This still meets that intent because the primary residence is 3,674 square feet and the proposed garden suite is 1,527. And the intent of putting this 40-foot maximum in between the 2 dwellings was because we wanted to alleviate people subdividing in between 2 dwellings. And at the time that we had put that in the new bylaw, the setback between the property line and a dwelling was 25 feet. But prior to the LUB getting approved, that setback was reduced to 10 feet. So that rule for the 40 feet doesn't meet the intent that it was intended for. It doesn't prevent a future subdivision because you only need to have a 10-foot setback between your dwelling and the property line now. The A277 standard was initiated in 1992 for any homes which are constructed in Alberta. And it's just a higher standard than that which was in effect in 1976 to 1992. So we adopted that into our current land use bylaw because we didn't want any dwellings being moved into the county that didn't meet that higher standard. So our conclusions is that staff supports the variance to the 1,200 square foot maximum, and we support the variance that it could be 1,527 square feet. Variance number 2, we support that one as well, which is the 40-foot maximum in between. We support that they could be 170 feet apart. And we do not support the A277 variance, as we would like the higher standard throughout the county. So I will just show you a site plan. So there's Cheadle, so we're east of Cheadle. There's the two residences, the primary residence and the proposed garden suite. And that's a photo of it. And that's the primary. And that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Does MPC have any comments, questions? Ben?
Yeah, questions about the A277 standards. And I understand the reasoning behind what you put in the new bylaw, that if the dwelling is being moved in, that we maintain that standard. But when I went through this the other day, and I'm still having trouble with that, it's been there since '96, and it's met all the standards when it was brought in there. It hasn't been moved, so what's changed? Like, there's lots of, I know it hasn't been, the permit was up in February, so it's been without a permit for a year, which they shouldn't have. They should have reapplied for the permit. But my question is, if we look at this, how many other ones in the municipality that were put in 20 years ago are going to fall into the same category? Like, they don't, my house probably wouldn't meet it. It was built 30-some years ago. But it hasn't been moved, hasn't changed, nothing's changed other than the use. So what's I guess my question would be, what's the difference between a garden suite and temporary, whatever they originally asked for? What's a garden suite used for?
A temporary dwelling was supposed to be a temp on the property, and it had to be renewed every 3 years, and it was supposed to be non-permanent. A garden suite can be permanent. And the temp dwellings were supposed to be for specific uses, for compassionate or farm help. And a garden suite, you can use it for whatever you like, as long as you meet all the requirements of the bylaw. That's basically the difference. It's permanent, whereas the other was temporary.
So further question, then what would have to be done to meet the A277 standards?
That's a CSA rating, so it can't, I mean, it's structural. It's about the structure of it, how they built it. I don't think an older one can be brought up to the A277.
Tom? Push it twice, or? Okay.
Anyway, my question is, what we've done here basically is we've taken something that hasn't done anything. I know the property, we're neighbors. Property, it's been upgraded. I've lived in mobile homes that are 40 years old. As long as they're properly maintained, what we are doing now, in my opinion, is we are going to tell people what they can and what isn't in their own best interest. And we cannot get into that. Like, we are not smart enough to tell other people how to live their lives. If they want to live in a mobile home that's 50 years old, not hazardous to their health, I don't think we can just change. I don't think this is going to affect that many different places. Anything that's being moved in, we have a bylaw that says it has to be moved after. But this is an existing building. That's all I've got to say.
Okay. Go ahead, Suzanne.
The applicant is here and I think would like to say something as well.
Okay. Do you want to say who's the applicant? Yeah, please. Suzanne, turn the mic on for him, please.
Can they put a PowerPoint in?
Sure.
Just additional photos of the property.
Okay, if you got a PowerPoint, go right ahead.
has, it's showing here, but I'm not sure, okay, here you go.
I have handed out pamphlets here, just a few photographs so that the council members can refer to them. First of all, my name's Mike Ritchie. I'm a director of the company that purchased this property. We took possession on the 16th of October of this year. My history is I've spent over 30 years in the RCMP, 6 years in homicide, and actually lived in Strathmore and policed this area from 97 to 2000. It was my intention to get involved in a property in this particular county because of my familiarity with it. These photographs were taken yesterday, approximately 3 o'clock. They're not the best quality. The first one, as it's built on a foundation, this temporary dwelling cannot move closer to the primary residence or anywhere for that matter. It's still in close proximity to the resident shop, which is 87 feet away, and are relatively close to the primary residence at 170 feet away. There's no convenient or effective way to subdivide the mobile home off the primary residence, and there's zero intent for the current owners to subdivide off the mobile home for the primary residence. As I say this, I'm referring to a mobile home, but it should actually read a structure on the property because it does have a full basement. Variance to the size of the dwelling due to the addition made to the original double-wide structure. The square footage now extends larger than the variance allows, which is 1,527 square feet. The size of this garden suite is still less than half the size of the primary residence on the property, which is 3,674 square feet, which aligns with bylaw requirements. The garden suite has 2 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, 1 bathroom, 1 kitchen, and a substantial deck, which exceeds minimum bylaw requirements. Picture shows the deck and addition. Variance number 3, the garden suite is now on a foundation, complete with basement windows, an extensive addition and deck, no longer a typical mobile home. Even though it's an older dwelling, the structure does not show its age and is not considered an eyesore, which we want to avoid as much as the county does. Additional photographs outlining addition and basement windows following this slide. On the south side of the property, it shows the entranceway and lower window under the main window on the south side. Concluding comments, this building has been located on the property for over a decade. I believe it's over 2 decades. Had been permitted by the county as recently as this year. No chance of subdividing garden suite from the primary residence. Mature landscaping and trees breaks up the visibility from the road, neighbors, and the primary residence. Picture showing it on the west side. There's a driveway into the garden suite. Additional pictures show landscaping and property from driveway. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is there any questions while he's up at the mic?
We were somewhat confused. Thank you. Our intent is to comply with the laws, and the only application possible is for a garden suite. There wasn't other options available. So,
Okay, thanks for that.
thank you.
Scott?
I just had a question if you have any trouble at all getting insurance for that.
No, we did get insurance.
You gotta have insurance for it? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, question for staff, I don't know if they can answer it or not, but under our old bylaw, if it was a temporary dwelling, they weren't supposed to have basements, were they?
That's correct.
So it's now a permanent on a foundation with a basement, and it hasn't been permitted since February, so it's sitting there without a permit. Basically a brand-new application, except for the fact that it hasn't been moved in. It's been sitting there for
Correct.
20-some years. Okay.
Any other questions?
If I could have your attention just for a second. The property was purchased at auction, and it was stated that it was under a temporary residence permit by the county. It wasn't until after the auction that I was able to establish that the permit had actually expired in February of this year. So I believe that actually it was stated to me by the prior owner that he hadn't renewed anything because his intent was to sell the place. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what happened. That's what we were stuck with.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other questions? I know when we were talking about the requirements, it was for moved-on buildings. So it's not meeting the requirements. I know when we have a move-on building and have to get it inspected by building codes. Does this building have to be inspected after we grant, if we were to grant it to stay, or is it just?
Because it's existing, we probably normally wouldn't ask for that, because it would have been inspected probably at the time it was put on there. I can't say for sure. I don't have the records from back then, but we can ask for that.
Okay, so if it was inspected back then when it was approved, and we approve it now, there's no real liability against the county for allowing it, is there, or are you aware of any? Because I just heard he's got it insured, so I'm thinking the insurance company should have asked them questions too, I'm not sure.
I can't speak to the liability issue.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Suzanne. Any other questions? MPC's wishes. Vision 4. Tom?
I move that Municipal Planning Commission choose option 1 to approve this application DP 2017-156 with conditions.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? What's that?
You probably should know the conditions.
Yeah, okay,
I did prepare sample conditions if you'd like me to put them up.
okay.
Conditions, this development permit is issued for the purpose of an existing manufactured dwelling with 3 variances defined as a garden suite. The 3 variances have been granted, allowing the garden suite to have a floor area of 1,527 square feet, allowing the garden suite to be located 170 feet from the primary residence, and waiving the CSA 8277 standard for manufactured dwellings. Development shall proceed according to Ag general requirements. No permanent development on or over any utility right-of-way or easement. An applicant to ensure approach is developed to county standards. Thank you.
Any questions? Jason's moved. All in favor? Carried. Thanks for coming in. Development permit, SD 2017-158. Whenever you're ready, Suzanne.
So this application is for a new single detached dwelling to be used as a garden suite. It's approximately 11 kilometers northeast of Nemeka. And staff are recommending that MPC choose option 1 to approve the application with the conditions as noted in the development report. Because the intent of the bylaw for stipulating the 40-foot separation distance is no longer effective at alleviating a future subdivision, allowing the garden suite to be located 90 feet from the primary residence will not increase the likelihood of a future subdivision application. So I'll just summarize my report. Whoops. So this proposed dwelling meets the 1,200 square foot maximum. It is proposed to be located 90 feet from the primary residence. It meets all the other provisions of the land use bylaw. As I indicated, the 40-foot separation distance was to alleviate a future subdivision, but we don't feel that meets that intention any longer. So we had circulated with no responses from any surrounding landowners. I'll just move forward here. So as I mentioned, our conclusion is option 1 to approve the variance with the following conditions. The development permit is issued for the purpose of a new single detached dwelling with a variance defined as a garden suite. The variance allows the garden suite to be located 90 feet from the primary residence. Shall proceed according to Ag general requirements. No permanent development on or over any utility right-of-way or easement, and the approach developed to county standards. And there is the location. Here's Nemeka over here, so we're northeast. There's the primary residence. These 2 greenhouses are going to be removed with the proposed dwelling to be located where they were. That's a picture. These are the greenhouses. It's kind of hard to see. And that's a drawing of what the proposed residence is going to look like. That's the primary. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? PC's wishes. Amber?
I'll move that we go with option 1 to approve the application with conditions as noted in the development permit report.
Okay, are there any questions? All in favor? Carried. And development DP 2017-159.
This application is for an existing kennel, which didn't have a permit, so she's coming now to get her permit and make it legal. It is about 8 kilometers northeast of Strathmore. It is our recommendation to choose option 1 to approve the application because it meets all the provisions of the land use bylaw. The manure management plan is satisfactory to the county. We have no record of complaints over the last 5 years that she's been there. And the animal numbers are fewer than with typical kennels that offer boarding services. So I'll just summarize my report. So this kennel, like I said, has been operating for about 5 years. She has 17 dogs, and she thought that she had a permit under a a previous kennel permit that she had at a different location, but she was advised that that was not the case. She needed a new permit. So she applied, and she has told us that there are no accessory buildings required, that all the dogs reside with her in the residence. Business activities include grooming and breeding and showing the dogs in dog shows at off-site locations. They have a fenced exercise paddock on the north side and several smaller enclosures outside. As I said, no dog boarding takes place there. There's an average of one business-related vehicle coming to the site by appointment only, and she also offers a pickup service, and she does grooming for people and goes and picks up their dogs. So the dogs, like I said, have been there about 5 years. We haven't had any complaints about them. A kennel, the intent of the land use bylaw requirements for the kennel is to ensure that kennel operations do not disturb neighboring residents, and that an acceptable method of handling the manure is in place and there's no risks to human health. So I circulated to Alberta Health Services, and they did have several comments which are in your report there, mostly to do with the operation of the kennel and how she's operating it in her house. These are things we provided to the applicant. I gave her the, excuse me, I gave her the report from Alberta Health Services, and it is our recommendation that she follow the recommendations in that report. We did file review internally, and our peace officers said that just make sure that the fencing is satisfactory to avoid the escape of the occupants. And Ag Services reviewed the manure management plan, and they have no issues with it. At the time I did this report, I hadn't had any responses from neighbors, but as you know, there have been 3 responses which are in front of you. So you've had a chance to review them. If you have questions, you can go ahead and ask.
Did everyone get a chance to read the? Everybody read them? Okay. Any questions?
On the conditions?
Yeah.
Yeah, number 9, just some clarification. When it says, no waste from the business will be disposed of at any county waste transfer site, is that all their waste, or is that just the waste from the kennels?
No waste from the business, so any, I get manure, or if they had any deceased animals, or they had anything that they were for treating the animals. The county waste transfer sites are only for household waste.
But their office waste, there's none of the, like, I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't, it says no waste from the business, so, and I'd like more clarity in there that it's as far as hazardous goods or manure, but if they have a bag full of office papers, what are they supposed to do with that? That has to go somewhere, and businesses in the county use our waste transfer sites.
That may be, so if you want me to clarify it in there that they can put their paper at the waste transfer facility, I can put that in there.
Yeah, just so long as they understand it's nothing from the kennels themselves, like you said, anything where they're treating the dogs and they have that kind of waste or the manure, that stuff, I agree with you, but they should still be able to use the transfer site for their office waste.
I only know that the waste transfer sites are supposed to be for household waste, so.
Yeah, I know, but every business in the rural uses them.
Any other questions? So you want that changed, Ben, that number 9 to accept?
Well, just a little more clarity in what waste we're talking about. And I don't know how you would.
No waste from the business other than
Paper.
paper?
Okay. So I can't type on this PDF, but I'll make a note to change that on their permit.
Does everyone agree with that? Donna? Okay.
Is there, if they wanted to expand, they would have to come back?
Yes, that's correct. Their permit will only allow exactly what they've said that they're doing right now.
Okay. Any other questions? Is everyone okay with amended number 9 for office waste paper? No one has any concerns about that? No other questions? MPC's wishes? Amber?
I'll move that council go with option 1, approving the development permit as presented with the, sorry? With the amended conditions.
Okay. Everyone clear? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Subdivision applications, file number SD 2017-32. Thanks for coming in. Good morning.
Good morning, MPC. So, this is for subdivision application SD 2017-32. It's proposed to subdivide one 10.5 acre parcel from the titled land. It is located in the northeast 132619 west of the 4, adjacent to Range Road 190 and Township Road 263, and approximately 11 kilometers southeast of Dallam. So for recommendation to MPC, staff recommends that the Municipal Planning Commission choose option 1 to approve subdivision application SD 2017-32 with conditions noted in the Appendix A of the planning report. The intent of the application is to separate out an existing farmstead on the parent parcel. The property was originally approved by council for redesignation to agricultural small holdings. At the time it was approved, this was during the previous land use bylaw. However, since the new land use bylaw has been passed, agricultural small holdings has been removed as the district, and it has gone back to agricultural general. And with this 10.5 acre parcel, it will remain agricultural general, and the remnant parcel will also remain agricultural general. In regards to policy, it's not within a current area structure plan. The SSRP was met through the implementation for agriculture and efficient land use. The RGMS document was also met through sections 3.2.4 and 4.3. MDP policies 3.1 and 3.6 were also met through this application, and land use bylaw section 9.1 was also met. So option 1 is to approve the application, or option 2, subdivision application SD 2017-32 be refused. As stated, staff recommends option number 1 for approval because it meets all the relevant policies within the county documents. I'm going to scroll down to the conditions of approval so that MPC can see them. And I'll mention this just before I scroll down, during external circulation to agencies, there were no major concerns. And internal circulation as well noted no major concerns. So let's cut off just a little bit, but these are the main conditions here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Ben?
Yeah, through the chair. I'm glad to finally see it finished. This couple this got caught between two bylaws, the old one and the new one, and I think they're just glad it's finally finished because I think originally it came in under the ag small holding and then we come through the new bylaw. So I think they're happy to have it finally finished. So I'll move that we approve option 1 with the conditions noted.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried. And subdivision file SD 2017-35. Thanks for coming in.
So for this application, the applicant has requested to subdivide a 2.6 acre parcel from the titled land. It is located on the southwest 32221 west of the 4 and adjacent to Range Road 213 and approximately 2 kilometers east of Clooney. Staff are recommending that the MPC choose option 1 to approve the subdivision application SD 2017-35 with the conditions noted in the appendix of the planning report. There we go. So the intent and purpose of the application, it was previously redesignated from file LU 2017-54 to country residential in order to support the existing residence that's now being proposed for subdivision. It was approved on July 18th, 2017, and they are now coming in for their subsequent subdivision. So the relevant policies, it was not within a current area structure plan within the county. So we went against the SSRP and it met the conditions and goals and objectives of the implementation for agriculture and efficient land use. The regional growth management strategy was also met through sections 3.2.4 and 4.3. And the municipal development plan policies 3.1 and 3.6 were also met. And it also met the conditions for the land use bylaw for rules and regulations for country residential in section 9.3. MPC then has 2 options. Option 1 is to approve SD 2017-35 or option 2 to refuse SD 2017-35. As I previously mentioned, staff is recommending option 1 for approval because it meets all the relevant county documents and does not fragment agricultural land. I'm going to scroll down again to the conditions so that MPC can see them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Jason?
I move Municipal Planning Committee approve SD 2017-35 for option 1 approval.
With the condition? Okay. Any questions? Concerns? All in, oh, Tom?
Here we go. Just the standard for subdivisions is 3 acres, is usually our minimum standard.
Can you answer that, please?
Through the chair, there is no minimum standard. In country residential, they do have between 1 and 5 acres for a country residential parcel. In this instance, 2.6 does meet the requirement. And in general, depending on the nature of the application, if it is a primarily residential parcel, we would generally recommend country residential as a use and the appropriate subdivision for that in order to accompany the existing residents as well as any of the septic and water. And in this case, it does include the entirety of the residence, a vegetated buffer around it, and the septic and water on the site there. So 2.6, there were no concerns.
Okay, answer your question. Yes, it does. Any other questions? Okay, Jason's moved. All in favor? Carried. And subdivision SD 2017-36.
So SD 2017-36 is proposing a 15.3 acre parcel from the titled land. The location is the northwest 342426 west of the 4 and adjacent to Township Road 250, approximately 3.7 kilometers southeast of the hamlet of Lealta. Staff is recommending that MPC choose option 1 for approval of subdivision SD 2017-36 with the conditions noted in the appendix of the planning report. So the intent and purpose of this application is to subdivide an existing homestead to separate it from the remnant parcel, which is currently cultivated. And being 15.3 acres, it did not require redesignation as it is currently large enough for agricultural general, and it also encompasses both residential and agricultural components on the land, and therefore staff see it appropriate to stay as agricultural general. Through the relevant policy review, it was not part of an area structure plan, so we looked at it through the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, and it met the requirements for the implementation plan for economy and agriculture. Through the Regional Growth Management Strategy, it met sections 3.4, which were relevant to the application, and also met policies 3.1 and 3.6 in the Municipal Development Plan, and it met section 9.1 of the Land Use Bylaw for Agricultural General District. Therefore, MPC has two options. Option 1 being to approve subdivision 2017-36 with the noted conditions, or option 2 to refuse the application. Again, staff has recommended option 1 for approval because it meets the necessary and relevant policies and objectives of the county documents, and it does not fragment or remove agricultural land from production. Again, I'm going to scroll down to the conditions so you can take a look before you make a decision. And to note on this one, we have been given legal counsel that for future applications with a municipal reserve that we request an additional condition for a deferred reserve caveat. In this instance, we did not have it at the time the report was prepared. So we are requesting that MPC consider the addition of one more condition for a deferred reserve caveat. This basically states that because we are taking a municipal reserve already on the subdivided parcel, any future subdivisions would not be able to take that MR. So with this deferred reserve caveat, this allows us to continue taking MR if future subdivisions are to occur on the land. If you need any clarity with that, I can provide that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Tom?
Yeah, just on the, just a clarification, like on the last slide that you've got on there, there's a little, like the.
Through the chair, are you referring to the map?
Yeah,
Okay.
There's a picture of them, yeah, well, the map will work too.
Okay. I'll see if I can find it.
It is page number 169 or 70, doesn't matter. There's a notch out on that development, just what is that notch? Yeah, the green spot.
Yep.
What is
Through the chair, that would be a previous subdivision on the land.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? So this deferred, what do you call it? A municipal reserve.
A
So if we take the
deferred
10%
reserve
now-
caveat.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we take the 10% now, so what's the caveat provide?
The caveat is basically a restriction on the titled land saying that any future subdivisions would still be applied, or sorry, would be required to take the MR. As I previously stated, because we are taking it now, technically any future subdivisions on the land would not be required to have a municipal reserve applied to it. In this instance, because there is such a large parcel left over, there is potential for future subdivision. And again, through legal counsel and also with the Municipal Government Act changes, it's been advised that we continue and go forward with ensuring that we include a deferred reserve caveat to ensure that future subdivisions on a parcel like this and any ones that take MR at the time would be required to take MR in future ones as well, if that makes
So
sense.
this is on the remainder of the parcel? not
That's
the
correct,
parcel.
yes.
Okay. Does everyone understand that? Okay. Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Scott.
Is that standard to take it out the first time you subdivide, or is it going to be taken out anytime?
Through the chair, because there's already a previous subdivision on the parcel, the Municipal Government Act states that any first parcel out on a quarter section does not require municipal reserve, so any subsequent ones would require that. In this instance, it's the second parcel out, so we would be required through the Municipal Government Act to take it. However, as I stated, because that's only on subsequent subdivisions, this basically the second parcel out, any future ones wouldn't necessarily be required. So with the deferred reserve caveat, anyone preceding this proposed subdivision would be required to continue to take municipal reserve.
Okay, any other questions? MPC's wishes. Scott?
I move that we proceed with option, the recommendation of staff that approve the subdivision application SD 2017-36 with the conditions noted in the Appendix A of the planning report.
With the addition of
It's
condition
in
9.
there, isn't it?
Through the chair, it's not in the appendix, and so that's why I've requested MPC to consider adding it in there based off of legal counsel and the new changes to the Municipal Government Act, which are reinforcing that deferred reserve caveat. So you would require us to add that and make an amendment to it.
And to amend the approval with the suggestion from staff. That makes sense?
With the addition of condition 9.
Yeah, yes, okay.
Okay, as discussed.
As
Okay.
discussed.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Could I ask a question? We've got some time.
Sure.
I'm thinking back to that first application and this question through the staff and for future. We don't have any more in our land use bylaw. We don't have a temporary residence permits. So the ones that are out there now under temporary residence, when they come back in, will they now have to remove those residences from the locations or make application for whatever garden suite or whatever it is?
Their choice will be either to remove them or apply for something which would allow them to remain.
So is there a watchdog on our computers or something that says when these permits come up, so we don't end up with some of them sitting out there for 10 years without a permit, and they end up with a basement under them and windows and everything else in them?
So we had been keeping a spreadsheet and sending reminders to people, which we will reinstate that process. But for the old ones that have been there for a really long time, we just have no idea where they all are until we come across them. So there may be some out there that were put there a long time ago that we haven't got on our radar.
So if they do come in, they'll go through the same process as this first one did. They'll have to either remove them or reapply and try and, okay.
Any other questions? We can adjourn maybe then?
I do have
Okay, go ahead, Jason.
that previous subdivision on Harold and Maxine's, is it just sitting there empty?
Looks like it, yeah.
Interesting.
I think we have lots of subdivisions out there that are sitting empty. Like, I don't know, at one time I thought there was like 1,000 of them, I'm not sure, yeah. There's a lot.
Is there, like, I think we have to address this, because if I, like, say on my particular piece of property, if I were to take time and get 5 subdivisions, I don't know if it's possible, but just say I were to take 5 subdivisions, I've suddenly created $500,000 worth of wealth for myself, because the subdivision is worth $100,000. And yet we are taxing them, and if I leave them dormant, we're taxing them at the grand rate of $25 a year. So there's absolutely no incentive for me to do a development, but there's lots of incentive for me to get lots of subdivisions. So it doesn't do the county any good to do a subdivision if we do not get any revenue off of it.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Go ahead, Ellen.
Well, you can address that by putting a minimum tax in. So the minimum tax right now is 25, so you can make that $1,000 if you want.
Does that not affect, it has to be all across, so if I,
Has to be across the whole county, yeah.
yeah,
So that affects other properties that have,
well, does that affect like I thought the maximum taxation?
yeah, you can put a minimum tax in. You can put that minimum tax at whatever rate you want. But there is other downsides to that, because there's other properties in the county that may be negatively affected, so. The other option is don't approve the subdivisions.
Through the chair, when you approve a subdivision, there's no guarantee somebody's gonna build on it. What's your guarantee? You can't force them to build on it. Those, when some of these small villages will put conditions on there that you have to build within a certain amount of time, but you can't make that hold up in court. But if they take 2 or 3 subdivisions out of a quarter and it gets farmed for 10 years, they're still paying tax on that farmland. They're not using that. There's no value in it.
Still the
minute they try to-
$25 though.
Yeah, there's no, how do we care? They're not using any extra services, they're not, the minute it gets sold or gets built on, then the taxation changes on it. If it's sitting there being farmed or hayed or horses grazing it or cows grazing it for the next 10 years, what concern is it of ours? They're the ones that are out of pocket the money of subdividing it, going through the process of doing that.
Scott?
I know in previous municipalities I've worked in, this was addressed on a municipal level, and the people would buy lots of lots on spec, and they sit on them for years and years, and I know we put in something about a 3-year build-out, and if they didn't, then it was billed as if there was a house on it, the taxes. So I give them a building commitment of 3 years, basically, or whatever you said that, and I'm pretty sure it held up, because a lot of lots actually started moving again, things started getting built. So it was kind of a
But I know that if it's challenged, and I challenged it once in Hazar, because I've got vacant lots sitting in Hazar, and they had conditions on it that they had to be developed, and it couldn't be used for certain, and they can't enforce it.
Yeah, like when you think about it, what are you gonna do? You can go build a house on it, or can't do anything. And if the owner doesn't wanna do it, all they do is create a fight.
It's not costing us anything.
Yeah.
But I've got landowners in my area that have got like 14 subdivisions, quarters, and I just don't know they should be, what I think we should do is get them back in, if they're either gonna subdivide and develop, or they are going to put them back into agricultural general. If we figure out a system that they can put them back into, undo the subdivision and doesn't cost them any money, then maybe we can get a control on it, because there are areas on that map that are just a dog's breakfast. And because of previous stuff that happened, that was allowed to happen, we've got problems, like, we could have problems down the road, right? And trying to get orderly subdivision ain't gonna happen with, when you pass a law that says you can have no more than 5 subdivisions on a quarter unless you have county sewer and water. And we've got some of them, they got 12 and 13 on a quarter, right? So, they're wasting their time basically, because it's gonna be a long time before we get sewer, county water. Thank you.
To that minimum subdivision, was there not a bylaw that had minimum subdivisions back in the day? Probably before my time, which isn't that long ago, but I was sure that there was a minimum, like, minimum number of subdivisions you can have per quarter?
Well, it was first parcel out.
Maximum, sorry.
Yeah, like there was first parcel out years ago, you could only subdivide the one parcel out of the quarter. That was years ago. And now it's kind of regulated through the 6th parcel, you need piped water and sewer, but it's a.
But you also got to remember, if you've got somebody that subdivided 14 lots out, there's got to be an ASP attached to that. If they come in to do any development on it, that's where you catch them, is under your, you would put them, make them go through the ASP. If they spend that kind of money to put that together, they're going to sell those places and put houses on them. They're not going to spend that money and have them sitting there empty. Once you get over the 5, I think it's 5, isn't it, Glenn? Once you get over the 5, then then provincial regulations come into effect. You have to do different. It's not just a matter of putting the lots there.
I don't think it was provincial regulations. It's our own, have to have pipe services.
The Water Act kicks
is
into
different.
place.
Well, that would
and
be the pipe services.
Waste management kicks into place, all that stuff, and that starts to cost money, so. And again, I still say that if they don't do anything with it, what's it cost us?
But you can do anything under 5 or under 6? Like if it's 5?
Can apply.
Okay.
Okay. So in answer to Jason's question, years ago it was first parcel out. And then council was starting, our MPC was getting inundated with creative boundary adjustments. And where there's parcels out there that used to be a quarter section are now 300 acres and there'd be they take their 2 subdivisions out, one for each quarter, but they would move it off into the corner where they wanted them, and then they put and we were getting boundary adjustments going across roads, and so council of the day decided to move to more than, and hence some of the bad ones I'm thinking are the 7 or 14 in an area. So to curb that, we started with the pipe services and stuff. But the ones that are out there now, we can't do anything about because we've missed our opportunity to put conditions on. We can't go back and put a condition on after the fact. But moving forward, we can keep doing it the same way. There's nothing saying we have to. We can change it. We can do it a different way. We can cut it down to 3. We can go back to first parcel out. It's the wishes of this board that determine. And the next one that comes in for 2 or 3 or 1, you don't have to approve them. There's nothing saying we have to approve them. So that we try and make things better, but in doing that, sometimes you make some mistakes along the way. So I don't know which way this board wants to lean, right?
Just for more information, what Glenn was talking about, we had quarters that had as many as 7 subdivisions on them because of railroad tracks, irrigation ditches, all kinds of things that they come up. The other thing you got to remember, we've got, how many hamlets have we got? Lots of hamlets, no services. And in those hamlets, you have to have a certain number of space to build on. And I know I own 2 lots in Chancellor, and I can't build on them. So when you're saying you're going to raise the price to $1,000 a lot, that's $2,000, and I can't do anything with it. I need 10 lots to develop in there for water and sewer, and there's 3 of us that own that block. So one of the 3 has to buy the rest of them out, or vice versa, but we cannot, none of the 3 of us can build on the lots that we owned in Chancellor because of there's no pipe services. You have to have an acre to put in water and sewer. It will be.
Somebody becomes a land baron.
It's just something you got to watch out for.
Yeah. There's parcels out in my division. It's the Grasswald system, and it's subdivided, not subdivided, they're original parcels that are an acre big, and there's no access to them. They're along the water, the service berry, and then that's a border. So they're being farmed. There'll be nothing ever built on them because they're, like Ben's, are too small. It's hard to fix past mistakes, or we won't call them mistakes. It's hard to change the past. We can change the future and make it better that way. I think that's the cleaner way to do it. Right?
Question, just because my area is in the municipal, the Calgary Growth Management Board there, right? Like, my area part of, can that area be, because that's where I'm not worried about the hamlets and all that kind of stuff, like, you know, but can we taxation along that growth corridor? No?
Provincial taxation rules don't allow you to do that, and you can't put a maximum on. You can only put a minimum tax on.
But my area is going to be, down the road is going to be looked upon differently than other areas of the county of Wheatland. So basically with the Growth Management Board, we sort of have a bipolar or a bi-structural system that's going to happen, right? Just because the city of Calgary is forcing us to do this. So why can we not look into doing something? Because anybody that's going to be coming out to my neck of the woods, they're going to be urban, basically urban people, right? That want to just saying.
You join Rocky View, we'll join Newell and everybody.
Are you sure that's going to happen? Because you look up at the capital region, Beaumont wanted to expand. There's a little bit of history to there. They annexed from Leduc. They got it instead of Edmonton. They got the company to come build there, but Edmonton said, no, you're not building there because you're in the growth management area. They don't get it. It goes wherever Edmonton says. So your area could be the same way. Calgary could say, no, there's no development there. And on the other side of the line in Donna's area, that's where all the development goes. You can't predict the future.
But I understand that, but that because of that, just because of that exact same principle, I'm not saying there's going to be growth in my area.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is just because we are already picked out we are on lines on a map now. That one side of that line is a different rule than the inside of the line. Can we not look at whether the taxation on that is different if we can make different rules?
I think the only thing you can tax on is the use of the land, what's actually being used on the land. So if somebody comes from that side of the line and builds a big factory, it'll be taxed as such. But you have to get the use to change. Not the zoning doesn't create a tax change at all. It's the use of the land. And you can use the land and it's not rezoned and it's still a tax change. The assessors go out and actually assess the improvements. They're not looking at the zoning. I know the banks, when you're doing a development, Angie, help me here, if it's a large development, say, take Muirfield, and it was a raw piece of land and they're looking for funding, and we don't give them zoning, they won't get the funding. But as soon as we give them zoning, the bank will more liable to fund them, because they can see a commitment by the municipality. But it's still risky money. So it's something to think about tomorrow when we're doing our strategic planning. What you want the future of the landscape to look like. And ways to fix it, make it better. Anything else? Ellen, you got your finger there on the button, or? Okay. Someone want to adjourn?
I'll move that we adjourn.
All in favor? Carried, thank you. We got checks to sign, guys, and reports.